Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans turn into rock stars every single day. You can learn more about what Operation Encore is doing by going over to their website at www.operationencore.org. That is www.operationencore.org. If you can give them a hand, just click that little donate button or follow all of their social medias and learn exactly what they are doing to change the lives of our veterans every single day. Hey, welcome everybody to Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. I love these kind of episodes that's coming up. I love talking with comedians because I know how hard that industry is. You know, there's no slack and there's no team. It's when you're on the stage, it's all about you and how you perform. So today we have got a guest and we're going to get into that. Marilyn Clamau. She is a weekly comedy with her podcast that is now on hiatus, and founder of Pre-Canceled Apparel. She pre-canceled herself before society did. I think that is hilarious. She performs around California and beyond as a stand-up comic and is friendly and maybe excited to do your podcast like she's doing mine if it's the right fit. So, all right, let's bring on Marilyn.
Hey, hi.
How's it going?
I love that intro.
I appreciate it. It was better than I did with your bio. I seen that the podcast part was at the bottom, but I didn't realize it was at the front too. But that's all right. So it shows that we are not AI. We are not bots here. We are humans and we make mistakes.
Not yet. I'm teetering on a new software upload here, but
are you?
My consciousness, yeah.
All right.
I'm getting to the point now where like I always thought about how I was so scared about AI and everything, but I really feel like I'm at the point where I'm on my phone like 23 hours a day. So I'm like already living in the online world. You know, I don't know about you, but I really need to like wrangle it in. Are you that way too?
Yep. As a matter of fact, I have just started using AI for a lot of the stuff that I was doing manually. I have ran out of hours and Walmart is completely sold out, so I can't buy anymore. But yeah, I am not one of those guys that's as afraid of AI. And I had a guest on here that said something that really made me think, because I asked him, he was all about AI. And I asked him, I said, where do you think that AI is going to go? And he said, well, to be honest, he said, we went from everybody talking and calling each other and talking with our neighbors to everybody's online now and nobody really talks to each other anymore. And there's no human interact. We're operating through screens. He said, I honestly think AI is going to change that. And we will be back to talking to people in person again, because that's the only thing we're going to be able to know is true, that person is a real person.
Yeah.
They're not on a screen. You can touch them and pinch them and they'll say, ow, And I never thought about that way. I was like, yeah, you are right. Because now even people don't even believe the news on the internet anymore because, that we don't have any clue what's real and what's not. So, yeah,
that's such a good point. I mean, I have so many thoughts that one of them is that I promised myself I would use AI just as a tool and not to like replace my own thinking. Like, one of my jobs is I work with podcasts and help write for a lot of podcasts and write articles. And early on, I was like, I will not have this write for me, but what I will do is have it sometimes like act as my editor. And I was already using some tools like Grammarly or, other tools to help me with my writing. And I feel like I kind of capped myself on AI, except the other day I did type in, I didn't know how to say no to a party invitation. And I asked AI, like, okay, I just said like, okay, you're a friendly girl. How would you say no to this invitation? And they gave me a very robotic answer, which I kind of used and I tried to like make my own way. So I just added like 30 exclamation points to what AI told me to say. So that's my one confession.
Now they're going to know too. They're going to be like,
now she'll know
that wasn't real.
Yes. And it was like, it sounded very like curt and inhuman, which it was. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you take a moment and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you came about to do what you do?
Yeah, so I'm currently in like the Los Angeles area, but everyone should hopefully don't judge me too much because of that. But people are faker than AI here. But I'm originally from the East Coast. I had like a wonderful upbringing in Pennsylvania, which I'm very proud to be from northeastern Pennsylvania. I went to school in Syracuse and then came to the West Coast, and I worked for a really long time at a music venue doing marketing publicity, so I have a special soft place in my heart for like musicians and just singer songwriters. And then I started getting more into the podcast world in about 2016, and then always had it in my mind. I did a lot of comedy stuff. I did radio, some other comedy writing, but I knew that stand-up was going to be the hardest one of all, and the one to tackle. So in 2020, right before the pandemic, I took my first stand-up class, and so that is definitely like a elevated hobby of mine that it's becoming more and more, which I'm so grateful for. So I do a lot of stand up here in Southern California and hoping to travel a lot more doing it in the future.
That is awesome. My hat's off to you because pre-military, before the Army, I was that guy. I loved to be in a group and tell the jokes and be making everybody laugh. And a lot of that changed after the military. But um, a lot of people would always tell me, you should be a comedian. You should, but I don't think I would ever have the balls to get up on that stage and grab that mic, and man, I'd just be like, what if they don't laugh?
Oh, well, I always tell people it's like it's worse and better than you could imagine. Like, and I think it really does help in terms, there are moments that people just don't laugh. And, I've performed and it's like some people will be falling over in their chairs laughing. And then some people will just have their arms crossed looking at you. But there's real power in having that happen, like the worst imaginable thing, happen. Yeah. And then getting through that, and just, it really makes you just better as like a performer, or just even as someone that's like following a passion. And I really, really encourage people to just hit up open mics as much as they can and just write. I think a lot of times people just think it's comedians just stand up on stage and like create a new 10 or 15 minutes every time. But really, It's just like some comedians have 5 to 7 minutes that they've done for like decades, and so it's always good to remember that like once you have that first 5 minutes, it's like you're just kind of creating from there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's crazy how in that world, how much you laugh. As a matter of fact, this weekend I'm headed to a fundraiser. It's a comedy show for a veteran organization that's raising money, and all the comedians are veterans. So I told them I'd come up there and live stream it for them, and I just sit back and I think to myself, man, how hard would this career be if this was the way I was trying to put food on my table and everything? Because this is not the old days. The old days was, you knew what club to try to get yourself into so you could network, and those days I think are kind of over.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I honestly have some friends that they were on, and they have been on like Conan and the late night shows, and then they're like a barista at the local, coffee store. And people think once you've made it on one of these, like a Jimmy Fallon or something, then you're off and running. But it is not how it used to be.
Yeah, that was, if you got on the Tonight Show back in the old days, your career was to the moon.
Yeah.
That was like Oprah sponsoring your show,
Exactly. And I think too, it's not like I think a lot of the jobs in entertainment are the same way, like musician and comedian, where it's not like a CEO track that you're on, where to me, it's like, okay, I know people that are pretty much out doing shows every single night, but their career isn't really like progressing to the next, they're spinning their wheels and they're out every single night, but it's like kind of what's the end game type thing. So I think some people are also really strategic, and I think social media plays such a big part for comedians, where that really is how it's like how you build an audience and kind of get discovered, in quotes.
I think that's kind of how Matt Rife's took off, was through social media, and he is hilarious. I love watching his he's got that shock, you know, you just never know what he's going to say to the crowd, you know? So
Yeah, I know my friends have been like yelling at me every day to post more clips. I need to really do that. I feel like I'm like a shy, weird person as well. So that's always
yeah.
like not a good combination to have to promote your own comedy, but then online and then, yeah. So that is something that people need to do, is just to not only put yourselves out there on stage, but then to promote it and have it like live there is so awkward, but you know.
And I think that's another thing too that we should mention is at this early stage, and I know for a fact it's the same for podcasters, it's the same for musicians, and it's the same for comedians. At the level that we're at, you are the show, the producer, the editor, the promoter. I mean, you have to wear all those hats. You don't have it. You know, most people don't have a team that's, you know, out there writing jokes for you and doing research, and managers that are finding the right clubs and the right times and all that stuff for you. That's all stuff that you got to do yourself and until, you know, to the moon you go. But,
yeah.
I think that's advantage that, you know, once you make it, it becomes easier because now you're just focused on your material and you've got players that are out there looking for your best interest because it's in their best interest.
Right. And I really do also feel like once you're kind of in on one of these things, it's almost like this giant party that it's like, oh, you know, this person, how about this? It's like kind of, you get a lot of green lights once you're like lit by one person or entity or something. Like I know people that got the in at Netflix, and then it's like, okay, once you have a couple specials, then like from there you get to touring, then you have a booking agent, and it's just off and running. So yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan's podcast. I kind of stole a little bit of the format. You know, I wish I had Joe Rogan money and I could fly my guests in and every interview be in person, but I don't. I have the guy that's too drunk in the gun room wallet. So there's no fights. But I do love that format where it's just a back and forth conversation. We don't, you know, we know where the show's going to start. I have no clue where this is going to go and how it's going to end. But I think it's cool the guests that he has on there, because I just watched the one where Ron White, and Ron was talking about when he came out of retirement and started touring again because of Joe Rogan and the new club that he made. It brought him back out. And he said the first time he went on stage, he said, I was horrible. He said, I can't stand watching that. He said, my timing was off, but everything was just horrible about the show. He said, maybe the people laughed, but I feel like they were laughing more because of how horrible I was.
Oh, yeah, that like awkward. Yeah.
And you think about that, you're like, man, that's Ron White.
Yeah.
You know? And he feels that way.
Oh my gosh, totally. I've also had the converse thing happen too, where I'll do a show that I videotaped and I'm like, oh my God, I crushed it. This was amazing. And like, I felt like I was at Madison Square Garden, and then I watch back the tape and it's like smattering of laughter. And I'm like, I can't post this. This is so embarrassing. So I've had it both ways too. And I've seen other like big name comedians in LA, you know, not bomb per se, but probably how Ron felt, where it was like cringy to watch. And I'm like, and then the next day they're on like a huge HBO show or something, you know? So it's like, the whole thing is very awkward. That's what I've learned. But I really have learned that anyone that's doing something huge, like there is just a cringy aspect to it, of whether you're making a movie or you're a musician, or, you know, you just kind of have to be like, yeah, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so let me ask you this. The first time you got on stage, right? You said, I'm going to do this. It's time. The jokes are coming off the paper and onto the stage. How did it go?
I think it went really well. It went well because I think above all else, I definitely like am confident, you know, so I think I brought that confidence with me the first time. I think I was really set on like, I can't do horribly this first time, so I'm going to go out there with confidence, because I knew deep down in myself that if I did it once and it like really went bad, I know myself and I feel like I would run away and just never to be found again. But I did it, and I felt like I had all these jokes and all these things inside of me that had just been waiting to kind of be structured and be performed. So it went really well. And then I think, as a lot of first time comedians do, I got a little bit in my head that I was like, oh, I don't need to do like putting in the effort, or like open mics are for people that don't know what they're doing. And then probably around like show 3 or 4, I got very humbled. And then what really tripped me up was I had like a 5-minute set, kind of my first one memorized. And then I think my next show was only 3 minutes, which seems like a lot. 3 minutes seems way easier, but it's hard to start a set and get into it in 3 minutes. And just the changing of that, I think, got to me as being like a first timer. And I definitely did bad at that. Like the whole audience, no one said anything, and one man just yelled out, "Jesus!" And then actually the host of the show, I'll never forget, where she said, I was wearing like a pre-canceled t-shirt, which was my t-shirt brand. And she's like, everyone needs to buy Meryl's t-shirt brand because she's not going to make any money from comedy.
Wow. Have you ever wondered how you can help out the show? Well, that is very simple. You can help us out by going to www.twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. That is www.twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. There's many ways you can help us by listening to the show, supporting the show, liking, sharing, and everything else that comes along with social media. But one of our biggest goals is to help build the nonprofit Heroes Voice Media Foundation. This is a foundation that has decided to start celebrating courage and amplifying heroes. Find your voice with Heroes Voice Media Foundation.
I know. I remember that. And then now I'm like, got that bitch, like, whatever. Now it's just fine. But that kind of stuff, it's good to get like, served back to you sometimes, because, and that's why it's good sometimes to also have a healthy ego, because you need to kind of be like, no, I'm going to show them and I'm going to keep going. And,
I think, I seen some advice somewhere. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't somebody that gave it to me, but I seen it somewhere. And it made complete sense. And they were talking about the acting industry. And they said you have to get so used to hearing no.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you go in and you audition, and you got the script in advance, and you rehearse what you're going to do. And you go in there and the people just look at you and say, nope, we didn't like it.
Right.
And you leave. You can't let that get to the point where you feel like they're saying, nope, I hate you. It's not you. They hated your material, and it's not personal. They didn't hate you personally. They just didn't like what you did. And so you have to take that and go back to, all right, well, they didn't like this. How do I fix this?
Right. Yep.
And
Yep.
you think of it in that terms, and it's no longer it's not personal anymore, but it's really hard to do.
It is. And people need to know too, like, anytime if my friends are like, or, even through social media, people are like, you're killing it. I'm like, okay, but I apply to some comedy festivals. Some I get into, some I don't. I do get rejection. And so it's that thing just to keep going. And then every now and then you'll have a show where, I did a show where I was, did it with like Jeremy Piven and Daryl Hammond and all these great people. And like the optics of that is like, wow, she's in Hollywood doing her thing. And, but the reality is like, okay, but the night before I was performing to one man eating a salad and just got rejected from like a comedy festival in Alaska and stuff. So I get the feeling you are this way too, where I'm a big fan of like that kind of middle ground of like not getting too high or too low and just like continuing to work hard.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to be that way. You have to have that, I'm going to succeed attitude but not to the point where you no longer are listening to anybody and you're just charging. Because I think those are the people like you were talking about earlier, where they're out there hustling, they're doing it, but they're not going anywhere. They're just
Right.
spinning their wheels. And I guarantee you, at some point, those people have been given advice and opportunities that they either didn't understand, didn't take, or didn't see, one or the other. And it makes it even that much harder on yourself, you know. So I do agree with you. That middle ground is where you need to be, because it keeps you humble, your ears open, but the drive is still there.
Yeah. Yeah. And taking into account, like how you said, if I get a couple rejections in a row, I'm like, okay, well, what video am I sending and submitting myself? You know, like what can I do to make it better, instead of, oh, that was a bad crowd, or that was like a, they're only looking for this or that type of person. Like
Yeah.
I'm also seeing too, like there's no such, like you really could do well if you're like, I have found that appearance and age and all that stuff, yes, there are some barriers in that aspect, but like not as much as we think, And so
Yeah.
I've seen, especially in comedy and stuff, I've seen people of all shapes and sizes and backgrounds and abilities, and not, I've seen everyone. It's amazing how like there really is not a lot of excuses of why people aren't moving ahead, other than like their own self.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of it goes back to that self-confidence, you know.
Yeah.
And again, I'm kind of biased, but I think that's another reason why, veterans kind of have an advantage, because, you're wired that way. You have to be confident in your decisions that you're going to make. And so you get that instilled in you, and we literally live a life full of fake it till you make it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way veterans are, We're the ones that will say yes, and I'll let them figure out that I didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I could imagine too, just the camaraderie and just like also being there for each other. And I think
Yeah.
that has a lot to do with like cheering on your fellow human and knowing that we all, kind of rise together. I feel like that's a big thing too.
Yeah, and I kind of feel that the comedy people are like that too. That
Yeah.
industry, that crowd, as far as comedians themselves, I don't know necessarily so much about promoters and club owners and stuff like that, but the comedians themselves seem like they are very willing to help and not shut doors on people.
Yeah. I've met a few. It makes such a difference just when you're like new, just having 2 or 3 people that are seasoned. And I've had that when a shout out, one of my favorite comedians, this a man, Ian Abramson, who's been on Comedy Central and Conan. And he's he went on like a late night show, and his set, he was wearing a shock dog collar, and he gave the remote to a woman. And he said, like, shock me anytime that I'm not funny. And this is what he did for his whole late night show. But I was lucky where I became friends with him, and he's given me like so much comedy gold advice. And it's like just I have 2 other friends like that, and that is like such a blessing. So I want to remember that, and as I get a little bit further along, instead of just kind of not helping people, to help them. Yeah.
I think so. I think that's important. You have to give back, because that industry, comedy, music, it starts from a passion.
Yeah.
You're passionate about making people happy, making people laugh, and if everybody kept the secrets to themselves, the industry would die.
Right.
Everybody would have to start over at zero and figure it out for themselves. And sometimes we see in decision making process, we don't necessarily want that.
Exactly. Except for the girl that told me I won't make any money in comedy. She can fuck herself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It sucks too, because she's really hot, and she has a famous aunt, and I'm like, God damn it. Sorry, I'm cursing right now.
I'm going to tell you something. Being hot isn't necessarily all that.
I know. But I think a lot of people put her on shows because they want to get in her comedy pants. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep.
But I have met a lot of girls. I'm like, holy cow. And then as soon as they started talking, I'm like,
oh yeah,
you guys got really ugly.
Just disassociate. That's half of my friends. They're not listening to this, so I can talk shit on them.
So you say you're also doing some writing.
Yeah.
How does that industry work? How different is that compared to actually it being your material and you having to perform it.
Right. Well, one of my so in a few different ways. One of them is, since for about like 8 or 9 years now, I've worked in different podcast production companies, and I write for different clients. So some clients will be more straightforward, like their podcast episodes, I'll just kind of sum up what we talked about. And then other clients, it will be longer episodes of all the takeaways and, just making it more into a blog post. And one of the favorite podcasts that I worked for for a long time is a popular one called the Dumb Blonde podcast. I don't know if you've heard of.
Yeah.
So like Bunny, her husband Jelly Roll has had like an amazing year, and so I've worked with them for like, they were one of my first clients, and so I'll help anytime you see like a title, or I work with the team a lot, but like it's me and two other wonderful ladies. So that's a podcast that originally, when she came to me, our production company said, we have this show, but they're so crude and rude and or not rude, but they're so lewd and no one else wants to work with them. I'm like, give them to me. And so she talks about a lot of taboo stuff, and I love that. So it's fun to write in her voice, because I feel like that's probably the client that I'm like most matched with in terms of like how I would normally speak and write and what I'm okay with. And then I have some other really straight ahead podcasts. I have one that I write about Angus beef, and they're farmers in Nebraska. And then I have other ones that are more like technical. So that helps changing up my writing style, because I love writing in different voices for different clients' needs. That is something I really like pride myself on, that I get really excited by. And then one of my other jobs is I write for a publication called the LA Girl. And it's all about like, the little foofy things happening in Los Angeles. And our target demographic for that is about like 25 to 30-year-olds in LA, and like, not my typical type of girl, but I'm lucky where they let me bring a little bit more humor and kind of some like sarcasticness into it. So I get to go try out restaurants and, do all that stuff. I think that helps me like integrate into the annoying LA scene.
Yeah. So the closest I've ever been to LA, I think, is where is it that it splits off? I-15?
Oh yeah. 15 is like also, you could take it like kind of east as well to like, Barstow and all that stuff.
Yep. So I was headed to San Diego, and I came in through the northern side of California there. And man, it seemed like I'm still hundreds of miles away from Los Angeles, but the traffic was already, it was like people were 100 miles out trying to get in the city. And people live like this, man. I couldn't do it.
And like if any of your listeners have any desire in writing, like, one of the ways I always tell people to start out is just by finding either podcasts that you're interested in or magazines, and just asking if you could, try like even a month of just helping out and writing, even for free, whatever, just to start your way. And then with the idea that maybe if you're like, okay, if these pieces are good, then maybe it can turn into more of a paid thing. Because I think like writing could come in many different forms. It doesn't just have to be a book or, like straight up magazine articles. It can be like, I'm a full-time writer, but it's for a podcast. So I think, that could be something.
Yeah, absolutely. I write, I do some freelance writing for a veteran magazine called Addie's Veteran Magazine. And so I love it. I do.
Yeah.
And after the show, I'll talk to you a little bit about another thing that my nonprofit works with. We do stuff for veteran authors and bloggers too. So that may be something you may be interested at some point, helping. I try to bring people in that are not necessarily veterans, that are in the writing industry, and have them just kind of do a webinar and, conversation with them to help answer some questions and stuff like that. So maybe at some point I could reach out to you for that.
Yeah. And I still feel like it's not too late or too crowded for people to start their own blogs or podcasts, just because like the markets are saturated, but that doesn't mean that what people have to say isn't important. I think like travel blogs are still popular, and, people want to see, especially if people have interest in also pairing it with social media. I feel like what we're going to be seeing soon is like the kind of, or, now, but even more is like the journalism paired with social media pieces. Like for when I go cover a restaurant now, it will not only be writing the review, but I'll have to get video footage that then goes on TikTok and Instagram and, all that stuff. But I mean, we get invitations from hotels and restaurants, and like that definitely is becoming more and more, where a few years ago, like if I wasn't a writer for an actual newspaper or a magazine, they may not be inviting people to like, all the journalist dinners and all of that.
Yeah. So you actually work for another company. This is not your company, correct?
Right. Yeah. The LA Girl is not, I'm like one of the main editors there, but it is a friend's company.
Okay. And I can only imagine what they charge Jelly Roll's wife to do her podcast, because I have been looking at some companies to help me with my podcast, because I'm to the point where there's not anything left of me to split in all these pieces. And so there's, I don't necessarily want them to do everything. I'm just looking for people that can help me. But man, I think what I need to do is go into the podcast management business, because
isn't that so funny? I know we all become like little independent editors after we see.
Yeah.
Well,
wow.
I know. Well, for example, like Bunny, Dumb Blonde took it in house, so now it's just us. Like she was working with one of the companies that I work for. Now it's like she's her own boss babe person, and so now like we she took it in house, and now it's just like the little group of us. But I mean, we'll talk after this too. But yeah, I work for some companies that run the gamut of like very expensive, where we have like a lot of investment companies and stuff, and then ones that are a little bit more streamlined, where it's just like myself and one editor, and there's not a lot of like margin, so it's a lot less expensive. But yeah, that is so funny, where like all of us independent contractors, after working for a company for a long time, we're like, wait, we could just probably do this.
Yeah, I mean, other than the connections of how to promote, that's probably the hard part. But yeah, I was looking at these prices, and I think I seen anywhere from $2,300 to $4,600 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, look, I don't make all that from my job.
I know. I know. I was working on one a few years ago where like I was getting paid almost like $200 just to like help book guests, and I was like per guest, so if I booked a guest I would get paid $200, and this was like sending out one email, and it was almost like criminal, where I'm like I haven't made that much easy money again since then. But I was like, I think we're like overcharging.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But they were paying it, and I think a lot of times when we work with the big companies, I feel like I'm spilling too much tea, but I feel like when we work with the bigger companies, their marketing budget, sometimes they just have to like use it up by the end of the year, they've already allotted so much, so you know how it is. But like yeah.
And the other thing too, I think it's also about image too. I mean,
yeah,
I'll be honest, if a guy comes to your house and says, I'll mow your yard for $2.75, and you're kind of looking at him like, well, man, what am I going to get for $2.75? What am I going to have to fix when he's done?
Yes.
And then another one comes in at $30. You're like, okay, that's about what I expected, so I'm going to go with the $30 guy.
Right, like higher value. Yeah.
Yep. They associate the price with quality.
Yes. Anytime I see the words like boutique or bespoke or something, I'm like, oh, this is going to be expensive.
Yep. Absolutely. So let me ask you this, right? If you had to choose, and you're on an island, and they said you can only do one for the rest of your life, you can either write or you can perform. Which way do you go?
Oh, that's so funny, because I always joke about how I can't wait till stand-up like gets me an opportunity where I never have to do stand-up again. But I but I never. I think in my heart I would miss it, and I feel like I would be jonesing for it. So I mean, I naturally would probably say I would stick with writing, and I could just write. But I mean, if I was forced to, probably that. But I think as time goes on and you just get more and more used to performing, I think that I could see that taking over, in a few years. But sometimes my friends and I are always like, someone put us in a movie so we don't have to ever get up on stage. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm going to keep it real, where I could see a scenario happening like that, where I'm not just one of these like road dog comics where I need to be out every night. It's like if another opportunity happens that I was also really excited about that gave me the same joy, I would, funnel into that.
Yeah. The other question I always ask all the comedians that come on, do you drink before the show, or are you one that is afraid to have some drinks before they go up on the show? I've got both.
You've got both. Yes, I don't have like a hard and fast rule. I feel like I've also learned my lesson not to. I'm almost not anxious enough before shows, and I could have like a big Thai food dinner. So I've learned my lesson also with food to not have like a steak with mashed potatoes, because then I just get so tired. And so, but I've almost, like, my friends are like, I don't know how you could eat. I'm like, I could honestly have like a Thanksgiving dinner and then go right up on stage. But in terms of alcohol, I will allow myself like sometimes like a shot of tequila or like something little that just does take a little bit of the edge off, but same with AI is that I make myself, that is not like what I'm dependent on. And to me, It's just a little tool that if I needed to use it, but I also do enough shows where I'm completely sober that I have proved to myself I don't need, drinks. But yeah, sometimes like I will have a little tequila, but most times I don't drink before, because I really do feel like even if I'm nervous, not drinking helps me connect with the audience a lot more. Yeah. And I feel like when I do drink, we just have that kind of glazed over feeling. I don't like smoke weed, or there's nothing against that, but I don't really, do it. But like, I also think that I've seen a lot of stone comics and it feels like they're just like so far away, Yeah. And so even if it's like nerves, I'm like, okay, you're going to have to get used to this at some point. So.
Yep. No, I do agree with you. And, I hope you can afford to move, because after that statement, I think California is going to ask you to leave.
I am not California sober. I know, like the only one where I'm like, ew, I don't need marijuana. Nothing. I think cannabis is like a beautiful plant. I actually like all the endocannabinoid stuff. Like I'm super into all the benefits. But in terms of also using that as a crutch, I often think I'm like, just be yourself. And even if it's scary, I think it's so worth it.
I do too. And that's the one thing I tell all the podcasters that I talk with, look, having some mistakes in your show, I think is important, because it does show authenticity. It shows who you are as a person. It shows that you can laugh at yourself a little bit, and it allows you to create that bond with the listeners. And I think that's important, just like you said, I think it's more important with the comedians. Because if you don't have that connection, well, we know where the show is going.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long night.
Yes. And I feel like alcohol to me, like either or, if you're kind of already like a down person, it just makes everyone a little bit more Eeyore-ish, And then for me too, I can be like very flighty and not really like grounded. I'm all over the place. And so alcohol just seems to exasperate that too. So like, I think just kind of being in like a sober state of mind really helps me just kind of stay a little bit more planted, Yep. However, I do an open mic every now and then where it's at 10 in the morning and we all drink coffee, and you should see, because it's like 8 comedians basically having a panic attack all at once. And so that is also a funny thing, that we always wish that there was more shows that were more caffeinated instead, because everyone is like, doing their set completely crazy.
Yeah. So what's the longest set you've done so far?
I have done a 27-minute set so far.
All right. So with that, do you integrate crowd work with that, or do you have a set bit that you do and that's what you do?
Yeah. I don't like, if I'm getting the sense that the crowd is kind of not feeling like wanting to be talked to or anything like that, or if I've touched upon a few people, like I don't really spend like 9 minutes per se. I have like a 30-minute set organized if I know I'm going to do that. And if I can get to it, that's cool. Or if something happens, one of my shows in particular, that was like a longer show. I did have one man that kept on, like, him and I just had everything in common, where he was like, I'm an only child too. He kept on. So everything. So like I referred back to him a few times and the crowd loved it. And it was really funny. And I've also had one time where like, I thought a guy in the audience was really attractive. And so I was like, pretend hitting on him the whole time and then turning it into like a weird Dateline episode where I said I was gonna like kill him at the end. And then, so I feel like I kind of scared. I don't want to scare people in my crowd work, but yeah, like I don't really in my mind, like I know now we're supposed to have that in terms of like getting videos and everything, but I don't a lot for that. But if it's going that way, I'm open to it for sure.
Well, I didn't know if that might be a good way to start that bond, to get that bond with the audience before you go into your bits.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me personally too, I'm definitely a comedian. Like I don't really want to rag on the audience. Like I like for me to be the
Right.
joke, and like I'll definitely make it way more about myself. I don't want anyone to like feel bad. It's just not my style. Like I think that's awesome when comics can do that, but I'm definitely more of kind of, that's always how I've been, where I'm just like hi, like I'm like quasi scared of people too. So I like it to be friendly. I have sometimes I talk about that my type of man, like I like really ugly men, and so it's really funny sometimes when I'll say that and I'll talk about like liking unattractive men, and I'll have men in the audience raising their hand being like, I'm ugly. So there was one show where I had like two men get into an argument about which one was uglier. So so stuff like that, where and then one time I had a man fall asleep in the crowd, and so like, but also like I don't want to make him feel bad, because what if he's working 20 hours a day, or he's on some medication. So I never ever like want to humiliate anyone or make them feel scared or anything like that. So if anything, like I'm going to be the one that is like that.
Yeah, and another thing, I don't know why I keep thinking back to this podcast, but another thing that Ron White said that I really liked, and it kind of goes along with what you're saying. He does not personally do any political stuff in his bits. And he said the reason why is because it draws lines. And he feels that a comedy club and a comedy show should be about a place where everybody has different beliefs, but they can come together and laugh together and have a good time.
Yeah.
And he ends his shows now with a statement similar to that. And I think what you're doing is real similar to that. You're bringing people into a place that they feel safe. They can laugh and kind of let themselves down a little bit, and their guard down a little bit. And for one night, no matter what else is going on in their lives, because you never know what's going on in people's lives. They could have been thinking about suicide, and a friend just happened to call him and said, hey, I'm going to a comedy club, come with me. And your jokes may have been the reason why he lived the next day. You don't never know. And I think that's important to not only have that bond for self-promotion because you made them laugh and the show was great, but to give people something to be happy about, because there's a lot of unhappy stuff going on in the world.
Yeah, there really is. And for me too, I think there's a lot of fatigue around us hearing all the time about the same things, about the same like Trump, Biden, this, that, the Kardashians. It's just like, even if the jokes are funny, I love stuff that gets our mind off of that. I also think about too, a lot of my set is like, or some of my material is about not wanting children, not having children, and it is that is because it's my choice, like not to have them. But I also do think a lot of times in the audience, I think about women that are watching the show that are maybe like going through kind of struggles with that, or want to have a baby but can't, or so that's just the woman part of me definitely makes sure I write material that's not.
Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans turn into rock stars every single day. You can learn more about what Operation Encore is doing by going over to their website at www.operationencore.org. That is www.operationencore.org. If you can give them a hand, just click that little donate button or follow all of their social medias and learn exactly what they are doing to change the lives of our veterans every single day.
It's like coming from my point of view without being insulting to whether people have babies or don't want babies, or all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely something I think about too.
Well, let me give you some advice. If you ever change your mind, adopt one that's 27. because in today's world that I only got to make it till I'm 18 and then they're out, doesn't exist.
Oh yeah. Do
So
you still
adopt
have
them
a?
much later.
Do you have a 27 living with you or anything?
26.
Oh really? And they're still living?
Yeah,
I see.
she's
I
still at
like it.
home.
Are they? Because I mean, I've had this conversation. I've had friends that do that, and then they're able to save enough to like
Yeah.
one day get a house. It's becoming increasingly harder and harder to do that. But like, are there rules about saving money? And I mean, that might be too personal to ask. But
No, absolutely not. No. So I'm going to tell you, Georgia is not a very wealthy state.
Mhm.
Um, they literally pay their people like crap. All right. My son works in the heating and air conditioning industry, and he makes $13.50 an hour.
Oh my God, is that minimum wage?
Uh, no. Well, it's above Georgia's minimum wage, but the federal minimum wage is 15. But the states do not have to abide by that.
Oh,
So I think the Georgia minimum wage, I think, is like 11 something. But yeah, it's try living on that. $13.50 an hour.
yeah. And then what would like the average rent cost for just like a normal apartment be?
Most you can get most people are living in trailers where I'm at.
Mhm.
So renting something like that, probably 700 a month.
Okay. Wow.
And I know you're like, holy cow, they're living over there for where you're at. But I mean, $13.50 also where you're at is
Yeah. Yeah,
not very
exactly.
stable.
How are you supposed to save up for a house like that or put money in retirement? Like,
You live at home until you're now
yeah,
36 instead
I
of
know. And
18.
I know that's a lot, but I also am a fan of like us living all intergenerationally. Like I wish I don't have grandparents anymore, but the thought of us like kind of living in like a little space all together with our parents and
Yeah.
siblings, like that's so cute to me. I think that's what a lot of
I think it's
European
time.
countries do. Yeah, I think that's
I mean,
sweet.
I
And then
think,
AI will do our jobs, and then we're
you know,
all hanging out with our
a-
family.
and it's funny too, because when I grew up, my dad was not a very pro minority type person.
Mhm.
And he always talked bad about how the Spanish people lived together all the time, and there was 56 of them in one house, you know. But I'm going to tell you something. I think it won't be long in America.
Yeah,
We're going to have to get wiser. You know, you see more people on mopeds now.
yeah.
You back in the old days when I was growing up, if you had a moped, everybody made fun of you. You know, so I do think that we're taking some lessons that we're learning from outside our world.
Yeah,
The Asians communities, and we are adapting, and I think that will be a good thing. I am like you. I am pro having the family close. I
yes.
personally am not close to my family. I live in Missouri and they're in Georgia, but that's because I can't live on $13.50 an hour.
Yeah.
When I got out of the military, I opened up my own company, and I had a trucking company for about 6 years, and COVID was like the worst debt collector in the world and put me out of business. But um, I also needed to take care of my mom that was getting older, and I got a real quick harsh lesson in how Medicare and all that stuff
Oh,
works, and all the benefits she was going to lose if I moved her to Georgia. So I found this job in Missouri that I can support my house in Georgia and me and my mom here. And so that's what we do. And, we adapt and overcome and make it work.
yeah. And to me, that's so much better than just like being randomly alone in a nursing home or being,
I couldn't
whatever.
do it.
That I know, I know. My
Yeah.
parents, I have the sweet spot where my parents are about like 2.5 hours away. And
Hmm.
so I feel like that's the perfect boundaries for me and
Yep.
for them too, where it's like I can go and see them easily, but then I feel like I have my own life. I feel like if my parents and I were too close, I really would be like with them 24/7 because I'm obsessed with them. But I think for now at this stage in life, being like a couple hours away is the best.
Well, I mean, at my mom's age, I just put a gate across the stairs and she can't make it upstairs. So
It's like a German Shepherd, like a.
yeah.
Oh, speaking of that, I wrote down on my thing. I love like canine I love canine military dogs.
I I love So it's funny you said that. I'm like that guy that was in your audience. Me and you are so
We're connected.
But I love the working dog class.
Yes.
So, I personally have a blackmouth cur. Most people have never heard of the breed,
No.
but they are back in history. That's what you would call the ranching dogs. You seen the old westerns where they say that's a cur dog.
Oh, is it like
Well,
KERR?
CUR,
Okay.
and they kind of look similar to boxers, but they were bred to be. They took multiple breeds that had different ideas and different skills, and they slowly integrated them. And they're great hunting dogs. Me personally, I use Anne for squirrel hunting, and she's really great at that. Very well trained, very smart dogs. So depending on where you go down in the south, and they like to use the same dog for hog hunting. I'm not a fan of that because it's very violent,
Oh,
But
really? To the
yeah,
dogs or to the
yeah,
hogs or both?
both. Well, so the way they do it is they have bay dogs is what they call them, where those dogs will get on the scent and they're not as fast or as aggressive, and they'll put 3 or 4 of them out, and then
Oh,
once they get on a scent, they'll release that cur dog, the blackmouth cur, and that's the one that's going to go and try to bite the hog by the ear and bring it to the ground and hold it down until the owner gets there to kill the hog. But they put these vests on the dogs because the pigs have tusks, and
oh yeah. Yeah.
moving the dogs will get stabbed, but it doesn't protect
Ooh.
everything, and it's just, it is some backwoods country crazy redneck crap.
Oh, I can't take that, especially because my favorite type of dog is like bloodhounds. I love
Yeah,
bloodhounds. I've owned bloodhounds, so like the thought of like a bloodhound getting needlessly hurt is like, yeah, I can't take that. It's too much for me.
as a matter of fact, my favorite book of all time is Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Love it. I love it. I own the black and white movie. I own the color movie. I own it all.
Do you think is the military? Do they use more of like the what's it called? Is it the Belgian Malinois?
Malamute.
I feel like that one came up so recently, or I've just been seeing
Yeah.
that dog.
There's a lot of benefits to that dog. One, because they're not super huge. They're in that
They're
medium
lean.
class. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can jump out of an airplane with them a lot easier than a German Shepherd that's tied to you.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they are so fast. My son has one.
Oh, really?
He was on a job site doing some AC, and he found that it was a puppy that somebody threw in the garbage can, and it was in the dumpster. So he rescued it, and it's at the house, and it's probably currently eating my couch as we speak.
Eating your mom. I've seen videos also where they go like upside down, and their jumping span is amazing. So now that dog, your son, and the mom are all living together.
My wife and
your wife
my son,
and the dog.
Yep.
That's a good household.
Yeah. Well, we in Georgia, that house is in the country, so we got 3 acres and a lake, and we used to have goats, and as they died off, we didn't replenish them. They did their job. They destroyed the grass in that little dog running area, and I don't have to play it anymore. So there was no need in replacing them after they died. But we had what was it, 4 goats? Yeah, four goats for 12, 13 years, and we've got, I don't know, three dogs, I think now, 4 dogs, and I don't know how many feral cats and owls and everything else that's running around the house that
wow,
seem to be like friendly to us. But
yeah, it's like a children's book waiting to happen, like all those
yeah,
things, minus the hog tearing apart the dogs. But yeah.
A lot of people laugh at me because I definitely love hunting, and I definitely love the outdoors. I just love the working class dog so much. I just don't like to see them get hurt.
I know. Yeah.
There's easier ways to kill hogs.
I can't even imagine, because the bloodhound that I had, even if I accidentally like stepped on his paw lightly, he would scream like roar, so yep. I can't imagine like these dogs getting hurt, because mine was such a like a little king. So.
Yeah. I'm here in Missouri where I'm at. They they use bloodhounds and stuff like that for finding downed animals. So like hunters that shot a deer,
the
deer ran off, they couldn't find it. this area I'm in is very, very big about if you shoot an animal, you do not stop looking until you find it. You do everything you can do to find it so that you make sure it's not suffering.
Oh,
Put it
yes.
down and use it for the purpose of eating and filling your freezer and so forth. And I've had people call in from work that said, "Hey, I've been out until 1 o'clock in the morning tracking a deer. I'm not going to make it in." And when hunting season opens, I don't know how we keep the plant running because that's like, I mean, that's an excused absence for the kids at school when hunting season opens. So yeah, it's very, very big here.
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah, there's people make good money that'll hire people that have those dogs to track and find down deer and stuff like that. So yeah.
And then how do they just run back and like alert, or they'll just start barking really loud?
So no, in Georgia, it's illegal to run deer with dogs. So as long as you have your dog on a leash, it's not considered running deer, meaning you're not. Some people will use dogs to spook the deer and get them running and get them moving because that's the only way you're going to find them, and that's illegal in Missouri. But as long as you have the dog on a leash, and it's tracking another dog, then that's perfectly fine.
Is there a limit on how many deer you can kill during hunting season?
Yes. So you buy a tag, and one tag will get you. You're allowed to shoot one buck and one doe, and then you can buy a couple more. I don't know the number. I think it's up to like 4 more doe tags, but you're only allowed 1 buck a year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 1 buck a year for rifle and 1 buck a year for archery.
I didn't know that. Are people honest?
I'm going to tell you that this state probably makes a lot of money in fines and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And during hunting season, you will see more game wardens around here than you will see the city police.
I know. How would they even keep track of that?
So one of the ways that they do it is they put up a robotic deer, and they'll sit out there and wait for somebody to stop and see it, because the people that do it dishonestly, they're not going through the woods. Your poachers are not going to be out in the woods walking around looking for deer. You can find a lot more deer along the highway than you can in the woods.
Yeah.
Well, it's illegal to shoot a deer from a vehicle. Even if you're in the back of a pickup truck standing up, that's illegal. It's illegal to shoot out of a vehicle, and it's illegal to shoot over a highway or from a highway. I think it's like 50 feet you have to be off of the highway to shoot. So they'll set up these robotic deer that their heads move and everything else, and they'll wait for a drunk guy to come by and see it out there. They're like the AI of deer. They look as real as possible. And you'll see the old guy stop and pull out a gun and shoot it, and the deer will just keep moving, and it'll take a couple more shots before the drunk guy realizes, oh man, that's a robot. And by that time, the lights are on and they're pulled over. Yep. So, and they take that serious here.
I feel like a Shark Tank product would be something that can tell you, like some type of radar device on whether or not something's like robotic.
Be like the radar gun guys that make the gun for the cops, and then they make the device that can detect the one.
Exactly. Exactly. Like on my phone, sometimes like that app that will tell you whether or not there's like a police person ahead. That will be the anti. Even though I don't know why I'm advocating to kill more deer, but. Well, the next time we talk, I really want you should organize an open mic with your friends and just tell everyone like, hey, we're going to eat some pizza and just say some jokes to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. We should do something like that. Would be a lot of fun. Once a month we do a podcast hangout with all the guys that are on our podcasting network. And that's really what it is. It's just all of us getting together and just talking. Nonsense.
I'm sure almost all of them have, like, in their notes app, they probably have, oh, this is a great joke. This is a great joke. But the rule is everyone has to, like, you guys all have to promise that you're going to at least laugh at each other.
Either that or we could make it a drinking game.
Yeah.
If the other people don't laugh, they have
God. That can get weird.
Yeah. Oh, it could actually. Yeah, it really could get weird. That's the way us military guys are. We are pretty weird. So, and we got
Well,
a whole different sense of humor too. So,
I know. I love it. I'm honored. I hope I get to do more military and veteran shows.
oh yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't you take a second and tell everybody where you can find you and any shows you got coming up and all that good stuff.
Well, during hunting season, I'll be playing the role of a robotic deer. But thank you so much. First of all, I had a lot of fun with you, and my Instagram is probably the best way for upcoming shows if anyone is in Southern California or just as I travel around. And it's Meryl, Meyryl, and then my last name is Klemow, Clamau.
All right.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. I really had a lot of fun.
Me too. This is what I do. I enjoy it. So, well, I'm gonna go put you in the green room real quick. We'll end the show, and I'll be right back with you.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, everybody. Yeah. So, anybody who has ever tried the comedy world, I am telling you, it is challenging. But my hat's off to you if you can do it. You know, Meryl does an awesome job. You can tell she's full of confidence and just an absolute pleasure to be around. So I think that's kind of the way the comedy world is. So any of you guys that are interested in it, I'm sure you can reach out to her and learn a little bit more about how to help, even with writing and everything else. And man, go ahead and send us a comment. Let us know if you're doing it. You know, we'd love to have you on the show and find out how your career is going. So hope everybody has a great time. Y'all be safe out there. And I cannot wait to see y'all next week.